You were not born to be liked. You were born to be real. Somewhere along the way we forgot that. We started trading pieces of ourselves just to belong. We started measuring our worth by how others responded to us. Did they smile? Did they agree? Did they follow? Did they approve? But the truth is, when you live your life trying to be liked by everyone, you end up becoming a watered-down version of yourself. You start editing your opinions, your tone, your choices, even your dreams, just to fit a mold that was never meant for you in the first place. When your identity becomes shaped by others' approval, you lose your center. You become addicted to applause, and that applause becomes the only thing you trust. But here's what nobody tells you. When you make being liked your priority, you make being respected impossible. Because people don't respect someone who abandons themselves to gain attention. People don't admire someone who changes depending on who's in the room. They may tolerate you, they may use you, but they will never truly value you, because you've shown them that your truth is negotiable. The fear of not being liked often begins early. Maybe someone punished you for being too loud, too direct, too ambitious. Maybe someone taught you that love is conditional, that you're only lovable when you're convenient, when you're sweet, when you're agreeable. And you internalized that. You made it a habit. You built your identity around it. And now, every time you have a truth to speak or a boundary to set, you shrink. You feel guilty. You tell yourself it's not worth the conflict. But it is. Because every time you silence yourself to keep someone comfortable, you make yourself the enemy of your own peace. There's a cost to being liked by everyone. That cost is your authenticity. That cost is your self-respect. And it's far too expensive. The world doesn't need more agreeable people. The world needs more people who are grounded in who they are, who say what they mean and mean what they say, who don't dress their truth up to make it more palatable. Because those are the people who actually create change. Those are the people who shift conversations, who build movements, who set standards. You are not here to win popularity contests. You are here to live a life rooted in values that mean something to you. You are here to have a spine, not just a smile. You are here to walk into a room and not wonder who likes you, but who respects you. Because respect comes from consistency, from clarity, from knowing who you are and not bending every time the wind blows. Being liked is fleeting. It depends on moods, on opinions, on trends. One day they'll praise you. The next day they'll doubt you. And if your sense of self is tied to that roller coaster, you'll never feel grounded. One moment of criticism will undo 100 compliments. That's how fragile it is. But when you are rooted in who you are, when you like yourself, fully and unapologetically, no one can shake that. Their disapproval won't derail you. Their silence won't make you question your worth. Because you're not looking to be liked. You're looking to be real. Being liked by everyone is impossible anyway. No matter how kind, generous, or thoughtful you are, someone somewhere will still misinterpret you. Will still project their wounds onto you. Will still find a reason to dislike you. So if you're going to be judged either way, you might as well be judged for being authentic. For standing in your truth. For saying the thing that needed to be said, because the alternative is to spend your life dancing for people who won't remember your name in 5 years. There is a certain freedom that comes when you stop needing to be liked. You walk lighter, you speak clearer, you make decisions based on values, not validation. You stop over-explaining, you stop apologizing for existing, you stop walking on eggshells. And you start building a life that actually feels good on the inside, not just one that looks good from the outside. When you drop the need to be liked, you become more discerning. You start to see who really values you, not just the version of you they benefit from. You begin attracting people who are aligned with your truth, your values, your vision. You stop performing and start connecting. Because the people who are meant to be in your life won't need you to shrink to make them comfortable. They'll meet you at your full size. This isn't about being rude. This isn't about becoming cold or dismissive. It's about choosing honesty over harmony, when harmony costs you your identity. It's about being grounded enough to say, this is who I am. I'm not for everyone, and that's okay. It's about owning your story, your voice, your space, without fear, without compromise. Too often we think that not being liked means we're doing something wrong. But sometimes, not being liked means you're finally doing something right. It means you're not contorting anymore. It means you're standing up instead of staying small. It means you're living aligned, not performing to fit in. The people who change the world, the ones who create deep impact, they're rarely the most liked. They're the most honest. They're the most grounded. They're the most relentless in living their truth, and that comes with a price. It means being misunderstood. It means being judged. But it also means being free. If you want a peaceful life, a purposeful life, a powerful life, let go of the need to be liked, let it die, mourn it if you have to, then bury it. Because once you stop chasing approval, you start chasing growth, you start speaking up, you start becoming someone even you are proud of. And that kind of self-respect, that's a currency no one can take from you. So don't be liked, be real, be rooted, be bold, let the world adjust. Because your authenticity will always outlast their opinion. The most dangerous voice in your life is the one that lives in your own mind. It doesn't scream, it whispers. It questions your worth, your ability, your future. It shows up when things go quiet, when you're trying something new, when you're about to take a risk. It disguises itself as logic, as caution, as humility, but what it really is self-sabotage. This voice has been with you for years. It was shaped by criticism you heard growing up, by failure you never processed, by trauma you thought you buried. It's become familiar, so familiar that you don't even question it anymore. You just believe it. You accept its judgment like it's gospel. You take its insults as facts. You say things to yourself like I'm not smart enough. I'm not attractive enough. I'm not strong enough. And you say them so often, they feel true. But truth and repetition are not the same thing. Just because you've repeated a thought 1,000 times doesn't make it reality. It just means you've reinforced a lie until your brain mistook it for truth. And the cost? Your confidence, your peace, your potential. Because every time you talk down to yourself, you build a life that matches that version of who you think you are, not who you really are. That inner critic doesn't motivate you. It immobilizes you. It doesn't push you forward. It keeps you stuck. It doesn't make you better. It convinces you you're broken. And the more you listen to it, the more your brain wires itself to accept limitation. Neuroplasticity shows us that your brain literally changes based on what you repeatedly think and say. If you speak defeat, your mind prepares for it. If you speak doubt, your actions mirror it. And slowly, your life becomes a reflection of your harshest self, judgment. You wouldn't speak to a stranger the way you speak to yourself. You wouldn't allow someone else to call your loved ones stupid, weak, or worthless. So why is it acceptable when you do it to yourself? Where did you learn that cruelty equals discipline? That shame equals growth? Who taught you that breaking yourself down was the only way to build yourself up? That voice in your head, your inner dialogue, it's not meant to be your enemy. It's meant to be your coach, your guide, your protector. But for too long, you've let it become your abuser. And the longer you allow that abuse, the more it becomes your identity. You forget who you were before the world told you who to be. You forget what your voice sounds like underneath all the noise. You lose touch with the core of you, the version that believes, that dares, that dreams. You may think harsh self-talk keeps you in line, but what it really does is chip away at your resilience. It erodes the very foundation you need to withstand adversity. When you fail, and you will, because that's part of growth, you need a voice inside that says, get up, learn, adapt, try again. Not a voice that says, see, I told you, you're not good enough. That voice isn't truth. That voice is fear pretending to be wisdom. Changing your self-talk doesn't mean lying to yourself. It doesn't mean sugarcoating your mistakes or pretending you're flawless. It means being honest without being cruel. It means holding yourself accountable while still being kind. It means looking in the mirror and saying, I messed up, but I am not a mess. I have work to do, but I am still worthy. I am learning, and that process is allowed to be imperfect. You don't need to be perfect to speak to yourself with respect. You don't need to have all the answers to be worthy of encouragement. You can be a work in progress and still choose not to weaponize your voice against yourself. That is strength. That is discipline. That is emotional maturity. Some of the most successful people in the world got where they are not because they never failed, but because they knew how to talk to themselves after they did. They didn't beat themselves up. They didn't wallow in shame. They didn't replay the mistake 100 times like a punishment. They acknowledged it, learned from it, and kept moving. That's what powerful self-talk sounds like. It's not arrogant. It's not delusional. It's grounded. It's focused. It's compassionate. And it's built over time. You have to train your inner voice like a muscle. At first, it will feel unnatural. You'll feel like you're faking it. You'll want to go back to the old script because it's comfortable, even if it's destructive. But every time you interrupt the pattern, every time you stop yourself mid-thought and reframe it with honesty and compassion, you take your power back. And over time, that voice becomes your ally again. The one that helps you through the storm, not the one that blames you for the weather. Start small. When you catch yourself saying I can't, try asking why not. When you hear I always fail, remind yourself that failure is data, not a definition. When your mind whispers you're not enough, answer with I am growing and that counts. These aren't affirmations meant to ignore reality. They're truth-based corrections designed to bring you back to center. Because the real you, the one buried under years of criticism and doubt, is capable, intelligent, and strong. The real you needs a voice that recognizes that protects that honors that. You can't build a meaningful life on a foundation of self-hate. You can't chase excellence while feeding your mind poison. You can't become who you're meant to be if you keep tearing yourself down every time you take a step forward. So ask yourself this: if someone else spoke to me the way I speak to myself, would I call it love? Would I call it loyalty? Would I call it leadership? And if the answer is no, then it's time to start rewriting that script. It's time to stop being your own bully and start becoming your own advocate. You don't need anyone else's permission to start treating yourself better. You don't need a perfect past. You don't need a flawless present. You just need a decision. A moment where you say, enough. Enough of the hate. Enough of the doubt. Enough of turning against myself. From this point forward, I will be my own ally. Because when you become your own ally, you change the way you show up in the world. You stop seeking validation because you already believe in your worth. You stop fearing failure because you know it won't destroy you. You stop shrinking to fit in because your voice is finally loud enough to guide you. Your words have power. Use them wisely. Speak to yourself like someone worth fighting for. Because you are. Comparison is the silent poison that creeps into your mind when you're not paying attention. It's subtle. It doesn't announce itself. It just waits. On your phone screen, in conversations, in moments of self-doubt. And then it whispers you're not enough. Look at them. They're doing better. They're more successful. They're happier. And just like that, your peace is stolen. Not because your life lacks value, but because you've measured it against someone else's highlight reel. You scroll through perfectly curated photos, filtered faces, and carefully edited captions, and forget that what you're seeing isn't truth. It's performance. It's projection. It's one small slice of someone else's reality, shown at just the right angle, in just the right lighting, stripped of struggle, stripped of insecurity, stripped of the chaos behind the scenes. But your brain doesn't make that distinction. It sees their success and immediately questions your worth. You stop celebrating your progress. You stop trusting your pace. You forget that your journey was never supposed to look like anyone else's in the first place. Comparison is not inspiration. It doesn't push you forward. It paralyzes you. It doesn't give you clarity. It clouds your vision. It makes you chase lives that don't belong to you, while ignoring the path that does. And over time, it creates a fracture between who you are and who you think you're supposed to be. That fracture becomes a wound. A wound that bleeds into every decision, every conversation, every goal you set. Not from a place of desire, but from a place of insecurity. You weren't born to be a copy of anyone else. You were born with a voice, a perspective, and a purpose that no one else on this planet can replicate. But you won't find that purpose by constantly looking sideways. You won't uncover your potential by trying to fit into a mold that was never designed for you. Every time you compare, you abandon your authenticity. Every time you wish for someone else's path, you forget the value of your own. And the cost is not just your peace. It's your power. The people you're comparing yourself to, they're struggling too. They've made mistakes you'll never see. They've cried behind closed doors. They've doubted themselves. They've questioned their worth. Just like you. Because success doesn't make you immune to pain. Beauty doesn't protect you from insecurity. Wealth doesn't guarantee happiness. And yet, we see their lives and assume they've figured something out that we haven't. We think they're ahead because they're more deserving. But success isn't a finish line, it's a journey. And everyone's journey comes with struggle, whether it's shown or not. When you compare, you rob yourself of the present. You stop appreciating the steps you've taken. You stop acknowledging the growth you've earned. You start thinking things like, I should be further along by now. I'm falling behind. But behind what? Behind whom? There is no universal timeline, no blueprint, no single way to do life right. You are not late. You are not lost. You are exactly where you're meant to be for the lessons you need right now. You don't grow by being perfect. You grow by being present. By showing up. By doing the work even when it's messy and hard and unglamorous. The real growth happens in the dark, when no one's watching, and that growth matters more than any external validation you're chasing. Because it's real, it's earned, and it will carry you farther than any temporary feeling of superiority ever could. Every time you compare, you're focusing on what you lack instead of what you have. But what if you reversed that? What if, instead of envy, You practiced gratitude. What if you looked at someone else's success and used it as evidence that it's possible for you too? Not proof that you're behind, but proof that it's out there, and it can be reached. What if you celebrated their wins without questioning your worth? That shift in mindset changes everything. It takes you out of scarcity and puts you back into abundance. It reminds you that there's room for all of us. That someone else's rise is not your fall. That life is not a zero-sum game. You're not meant to have someone else's life. You're meant to live yours fully, deeply, and unapologetically. And that means honoring your timing. That means accepting that you might take longer to get where you're going. That your journey might look messier. That your progress might come in waves. But none of that makes it less worthy. None of that makes you less capable. You are not defined by where you are right now. You are defined by how you show up, how you keep going, how you stay grounded in your truth. Even when it's tempting to chase someone else's, comparison will try to convince you that your story is boring, that your progress is too slow, that your efforts are pointless. But your story is not supposed to impress others. It's supposed to transform you. It's supposed to teach you, stretch you, reveal who you are beneath the pressure. And if you keep abandoning that story to live inside someone else's, you'll never get to see how powerful yours could have been. The key is self-awareness, the ability to pause and recognize when comparison is taking over. The courage to ask yourself, is this helping me or hurting me? Is this motivating me or distracting me? Is this making me better or just more bitter? And then choose to shift. Choose to focus inward. Choose to stay on your path even when it feels slower, even when it's not glamorous, even when it's hard. You can admire someone's journey without resenting your own. You can be inspired without being envious. You can appreciate someone's success without questioning your value, because your value is not up for debate. It's not tied to metrics or milestones. It's tied to who you are, how you treat people, and how you show up when no one else is looking. There is no competition when you're walking in alignment with your purpose. There's only growth. There's only learning. There's only becoming, and that becoming is sacred. It's personal. It can't be rushed, so stay focused on your lane. Tend to your soil. Water your own roots, because one day, the bloom will come, and when it does, it won't look like anyone else's, and it won't need to, because it will be yours, authentically, fully, powerfully, yours. Avoiding difficult conversations is one of the most common ways we silently betray ourselves. It begins with a moment. Someone crosses a line, says something that doesn't sit right with you, or does something that causes discomfort or pain. Your heart skips a beat, your gut tightens. Your instincts tell you to speak up, to protect your space, to express the truth of what you're feeling. But instead, you stay silent. You smile. You brush it off. You tell yourself it's not worth the drama, that maybe it's not a big deal. That keeping the peace is more important than being heard. What you don't realize in that moment is that every time you do this, you are abandoning a part of yourself. Difficult conversations are hard for a reason. They confront discomfort, vulnerability, and uncertainty. They require courage, not because we're facing the other person, but because we're facing ourselves. Speaking truth, especially when it's painful or confrontational, reveals who we really are. It forces us to stand up for what matters. But when we choose silence instead, we don't avoid the problem, we bury it. And buried emotions do not dissolve, they ferment. They grow into resentment, confusion, distance, and disconnection, both from others and from ourselves. We think that staying quiet makes us stronger. We think swallowing our feelings is an act of maturity. But there's nothing strong about letting others walk over your boundaries. There's nothing mature about choosing comfort over truth. Silence doesn't preserve relationships. It erodes them. You begin to feel unseen, unheard, and unimportant. You start to second-guess yourself, wondering if you're being too sensitive or dramatic. And slowly, that quiet tolerance becomes internal chaos. The irony is, we avoid hard conversations because we fear they'll damage relationships. But the damage happens in the silence. The longer we suppress, the more our energy changes. We pull back, we grow cold, we distance ourselves emotionally, sometimes even physically. And the other person notices, but they don't understand. Because we never told them. We never gave them a chance to see how their actions affected us. We assumed they should know. We made up stories in our heads about their intentions, their feelings, their motivations. And those stories, unspoken and unverified, become the foundation for a wall that never needed to be built. Truth isn't easy, but it's essential. Speaking your truth isn't about attacking. It's not about winning. It's not about being right. It's about being honest. It's about showing up for yourself in a way that honors your values, your boundaries, and your emotional integrity. It's about saying, this matters to me, I matter to me. My peace, my comfort, my feelings, they deserve space too. And if someone can't hold space for those things, that tells you everything you need to know. When you avoid hard conversations, you give away your power. You let fear lead. Fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of conflict. But fear is a liar. It tells you that silence will keep you safe. It convinces you that speaking up will cause more harm than good. But the truth is, the longer you delay the conversation, the harder it becomes to have. The energy builds. The emotion accumulates. And by the time it finally explodes, it does so in ways that are disproportionate, messy, and sometimes irreversible. Learning to communicate with strength and clarity is not about confrontation. It's about liberation. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of unspoken truths. It's about learning that your voice is not a weapon. It's a bridge. And that bridge, when built with intention and care, leads to deeper connection, not distance. But building that bridge takes effort. It takes emotional intelligence. It takes the willingness to sit in discomfort without running from it. You can say hard things with softness. You can express pain without aggression. You can set boundaries without building walls. But all of that begins with the decision to no longer betray yourself for the sake of harmony. Harmony that is built on silence is not real harmony. It's a ticking clock. It's a delayed fracture. And eventually, it will break. You may fear how someone will react to your honesty. You may worry that they'll get angry, defensive, or walk away. And yes, those are possibilities. But ask yourself this. If someone walks away because you expressed a need, a boundary, or a truth, did they ever really see you? Or did they only love the version of you that kept quiet to keep them comfortable? You're not responsible for other people's emotional responses to your truth. You're only responsible for how you deliver it. If you speak from a grounded place, with clarity, compassion, and respect, you've done your part. What they do with that truth is their responsibility. You cannot control their reaction. You can only control your alignment with your own integrity. Start small if you need to. Practice saying what you feel in low-stakes moments. Build your emotional vocabulary. Learn to identify what you need and why. Get comfortable with discomfort. And most importantly, trust that your voice matters, that your truth is valid, that your inner peace is worth protecting, even if it ruffles feathers. People often say that time heals all wounds. But time does nothing if you're still carrying the wound in silence. Healing requires exposure. It requires honesty. It requires truth. And sometimes, that truth is the hard conversation you've been avoiding. So speak. Not to harm, but to heal. Not to control, but to clarify. Not to attack, but to align. Your voice is not the problem. The problem is the years you've spent convincing yourself that your silence was safer. It's not. Silence may delay pain, but it guarantees distance. Honesty, even when it's messy, creates the possibility of closeness, of understanding, of growth. Stop apologizing for needing clarity. Stop shrinking to fit into other people's comfort zones. Stop pretending everything is okay when your heart is screaming that it's not. The people who truly care about you will want to know your truth. They'll want to understand your needs. They'll want to grow with you, not silence you. You deserve relationships where truth is not only welcomed, but encouraged, where difficult conversations are not threats, but opportunities, where your voice is not tolerated but valued. And that begins with you, with your courage, with your decision to no longer abandon yourself just to keep things quiet. The next time something hurts, confuses, or unsettles you, pause and ask yourself, is my silence serving me, or is it suffocating me? Am I preserving peace, or just avoiding discomfort? Then choose to speak, choose to show up, choose to honor your truth. Because difficult conversations don't destroy relationships. Avoiding them does. Truth may shake things up, but it also sets you free. And freedom, real freedom, begins the moment you decide that your voice is worthy of being heard. The need for external validation is one of the most exhausting patterns a person can live inside. It starts quietly, often without you even realizing it. You make a decision, and then immediately look around to see who approves. You say something you believe in, and then second, guess yourself if it doesn't get a good reaction. You wear something, post something, do something, and then measure its value based on how others respond. Slowly, without noticing, you begin outsourcing your confidence. And the more you do it, the less you trust your own voice. Validation, when it comes from others, can feel like a rush. A like, a compliment, a nod of approval. It gives a dopamine hit. It feels good. It feels safe. It feels like acceptance. But here's the truth: what feels like confidence is often just dependency in disguise. Because the moment that approval disappears, the moment someone doesn't respond the way you hoped, your self-worth collapses. That's not self-esteem. That's self-abandonment. When you build your identity on the opinions of others, you live in a house with no foundation. It shakes every time someone has a different perspective. It crumbles every time someone disapproves. You start living for the applause instead of alignment. You lose your center trying to keep up with shifting standards. And the danger in this is that no matter how much validation you get, it's never enough. You could be praised by 100 people, but if one person disapproves, that's the voice that sticks. Because the part of you that craves validation is not looking to be seen, it's looking to be saved. You don't need to be saved. You need to be reminded of who you are without the noise, without the audience, without the constant performance. Who are you when no one's watching? What do you value when no one is clapping? What do you stand for when it's not trending, not popular, not guaranteed to be well received? Validation is a drug that slowly erodes your authenticity. The more you chase it, the further you drift from your truth. And what's worse, it trains your nervous system to equate being seen with being safe. So you start to fear rejection like it's danger. You avoid standing out unless it's guaranteed to be praised. You stay silent when you want to speak, because speaking might mean judgment. And judgment, to someone addicted to approval, feels like a personal death. But rejection is not the end of the world. Disagreement is not the same as disrespect. You are allowed to be misunderstood. You are allowed to be disliked. You are allowed to take up space in a way that not everyone applauds, and still be whole, still be worthy, still be powerful. The strongest people you know, the ones who shift culture, who challenge norms, who live boldly, they are not the most liked. They are the most convicted. They don't live for validation. They live from alignment. They know who they are, and that knowledge is not up for debate. So whether someone praises them or criticizes them, it doesn't shake their foundation. Because their validation comes from within. That's what real confidence is. It's not loud. It's not performative. It's steady. It's grounded. It's the ability to walk into a room and not scan for approval, but carry your own. To know that you don't have to shrink to be accepted, that you don't have to change your tone, your truth, or your timing to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Self-validation is not arrogance. It's not being closed off to feedback. It's being anchored in your values so deeply that feedback becomes data, not definition. You listen, but you filter. You're open, but you're not empty. You welcome perspective, but you never let it override your intuition. Reclaiming your sense of worth from external validation is not easy, especially if you've spent years relying on it to feel seen. But it is necessary. Because if you don't learn to validate yourself, you will always be at the mercy of someone else's opinion. You will twist yourself into shapes that don't belong to you. You will chase approval in rooms where you don't even feel safe. You will forget that your voice matters even if no one echoes it back to you. It starts with noticing when you're seeking approval. Catch yourself in the moment. Pause. Ask yourself, if no one saw this, if no one praised this, would I still want it? Would I still believe it? Would I still do it? That answer will tell you whether your actions are rooted in truth or performance. You have to learn how to sit with discomfort. The discomfort of not being praised, the discomfort of being ignored, the discomfort of people not liking you, not clapping for you, not agreeing with you. And instead of folding under that silence, you breathe through it. You hold your own hand. You remind yourself that you were never meant to please everyone. Trying to be everything for everyone is the fastest way to become nothing to yourself. You dilute your power when you need everyone to approve of it. Your voice becomes noise when you keep adjusting the volume to match someone else's preference. Your worth becomes fragile when it's attached to someone else's perception. But when you validate yourself, everything changes. You no longer need applause to feel seen. You no longer need agreement to feel confident. You no longer fear rejection, because you're not asking for permission to exist. You stand in your truth, knowing it won't be for everyone, and that's okay. You're not for everyone. You're for the people who see you clearly, who value substance over show, who recognize your strength without needing it to look like theirs. You become magnetic not because you're chasing attention, but because you've stopped needing it. You show up as you are, without apology, without disguise, and the people who resonate with that truth, they stay. Not because you begged for their loyalty, but because your authenticity earned their respect. Validation is a choice. Every time you look outward for it, you weaken your connection to self. Every time you give it to yourself, you reinforce your integrity. You're not asking the world to approve of you. You're telling the world that you approve of yourself, and that alone makes you unstoppable.